It's the best job in the world. I get paid to hang out with my family.
Before she could kick back and collect her 10%, Momager Kris Jenner was paying her bills working at a donut shop and as a flight attendant. This absolute powerhouse and matriarch of the Kardashian-Jenner family comes from surprisingly humble beginnings and advocates for working harder and smarter.
No one will fight harder for you than your own mother.
We'll talk about her biggest fear, deepest regret, and how it all worked out for her in the end.
Did you trademark the term momager?
I did.
Keeping Up With The Kardashians fans know all about Kris's mother, MJ, who is still a big part of her life. But sadly, while she was growing up, Kris lost not one, but two father figures. Her parents went through a difficult divorce when she was only 7, and later her dad, Robert True Houghton, lost his life in a car accident. Although MJ's next husband adored Kris, he too perished in a crash, leaving Kris with her greatest lingering fear, which is just losing someone. When MJ was widowed, she realized she couldn't manage her business in her grief, so Kris stepped up to take over her mom's shop. Kris's first job as a teenager was working in a donut shop, and later she flew around the world as a flight attendant. Not only was this a way to bring in some cash, but at the time, Kris was eager to get away from an unfortunate development in her romantic life. As a teenager, Kris dated professional golfer Cesar Sanudo, who was over 10 years her senior at the time. But according to Kris, Cesar frequently traveled for work, leaving her feeling lonely and looking for attention from someone else.
I thought I knew it all. I was young and, you think you're smarter than everybody else.
She's since admitted that while Cesar was on the road, she started seeing Robert Kardashian on the sly. While Kris said she was head over heels, Cesar's friend Jack Spradlin claims she simply saw Robert as a better financial opportunity. But alas, things between Kris and Robert weren't meant to be just yet. He dumped her for another woman, and that person was none other than Priscilla Presley. They aren't kidding when they say Hollywood's a small town. So Kris signed on as a flight attendant for American Airlines, which she says was a great learning experience. If she could communicate with cranky travelers, she could handle anything. She also said it taught her to take pride in a job well done and how to hold herself accountable. But let's not pretend that she didn't quit the moment Robert came back to her. Long story short, things didn't quite work out with him and Priscilla, but he was wary about being taken advantage of financially. Although he was happy to move Kris into his mansion in Beverly Hills, he didn't offer her a free ride. In fact, he refused to pay for the tires for her ride, forcing her to drive an old Mazda while he treated himself to a Mercedes and a Rolls-Royce. Robert may have controlled the family's finances in the beginning, but that changed once they got married. Kris returned from their honeymoon pregnant with Kourtney and became a mother at the age of 23. Nowadays, Kris looks back fondly at this time in her life and says she had some of her happiest times with her first husband. But at the time, Kris was going through a lot as she became a mother of 4 and tried to keep her husband happy. Even Robert's friends admit he put a lot of pressure on Kris to be perfect, and he even had her listen to self-help tapes so she could improve skills like cooking and party planning. Maybe that's why she and her kids love throwing huge over-the-top events for any occasion. So, Kris found ways to rebel against her husband and the life she felt trapped within. She started spending freely from their joint bank account and eventually crossed a line and did something she regrets to this day. Kris had an affair with her friend and personal trainer Todd Waterman, which led to her divorce.
I think I have one regret, and that was getting divorced.
Not only was Kris cut off financially, but the split had a huge impact on her kids, particularly Kim and Kourtney, who were older and more aware of the situation. To this day, the sisters remember their father's devastation, but they've eventually come to sympathize with Kris's situation, even if they don't necessarily approve of her actions. Kris met her next partner, Caitlyn Jenner, while she was still married to Robert, although the two had separated. Caitlyn and Kris were set up on a blind date and fell for each other immediately. Although this sounds a little awkward, Kris says Caitlyn and Robert became friendly, and eventually Caitlyn asked him to expedite the divorce so she and Kris could get married. Robert agreed, and Kris and Caitlyn got married as soon as possible. But with a new marriage came new problems, and one of them involved money. Basically, they had none. The new couple was broke, but Kris hadn't given up on her work ethic during her first marriage, and she was ready to hustle. She capitalized on Caitlyn's past as an Olympic athlete by booking speaking arrangements, getting endorsement deals, and even making their own infomercial about getting fit. Yes, there was a time when the mighty reality TV mogul Kris Jenner made an infomercial and it was a huge success. Not only that, but it helped teach Kris about television and ignited a passion for production. She learned the secrets of creating compelling footage and realized she'd found something she truly loved. Kris was devastated when her first marriage ended, but she's learned to look on the bright side. She takes comfort in the fact that if she didn't remarry, she wouldn't have had Kendall and Kylie, and it's likely we wouldn't have Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Kris discovered her love of television production during her marriage to Caitlyn, but for a while she focused her attention elsewhere. In 2004, Kourtney and Kris decided to go into business together by opening a boutique called Smooch, which sold children's clothing. It was an exciting time for the family since fashion had come to be an important part of their lives. When the family first became famous, it seemed like their stores were an afterthought, but the original intention was pretty much the opposite. Kris had hoped that by appearing on a reality show, she would get more attention on Smooch and open up additional stores as well. 2007 was a big year for the Kardashian-Jenner family for a couple of reasons. Smooch was still going strong, and so was Dash, a clothing and accessory store owned by Kim, Kourtney, and Khloe, which had opened a year earlier. At the time, Kim's experience with reality TV was sometimes appearing in the background of shows involving her friend, Paris Hilton. Then, that year, a very sensitive video of Kim and Ray J was leaked, causing her to become a household name pretty much overnight. Everyone was talking about it, and even though Kim claimed to be devastated, some people wondered if the whole thing was part of a grand plan. Later, Kardashian Dynasty author Ian Halperin claimed Kim knowingly signed a deal to release the tape and that Kris was in on the whole thing. The family denies it, but some fans believe this was all just too much of a coincidence, since that very year, Kris brought the idea of a reality show based on her family to Ryan Seacrest. Since The Osbournes was such a huge hit, Kris wanted to get in on the action and believed her background in video production could be an asset. She invited Ryan to a cookout at her house, and he went out of pocket to pay for the camera crew. They both realized they had a hit on their hands, and Keeping Up with the Kardashians was born. It's no secret that being a part of this show has earned this family a ton of cash. After all, they receive paychecks for being on this series as well as producing it, but this franchise is an even bigger moneymaker than a lot of fans realize. It's not unusual to see family members promoting products on their social media accounts, and they're no stranger to endorsement deals. According to Kris, the reason so many companies are willing to pay big bucks for the Kardashian-Jenners is because they have such a devoted fan following. Kris says that because her family is so large, everyone in the audience has at least one person they relate to or are entertained the most by, so their potential customer base is absolutely enormous. She started the show in an effort to get publicity for shops like Smooch and Dash, but those ended up being closed for more online endeavors. That might sound crazy, but according to Kris, all of those endorsement deals can easily be worth 6 figures for a few photos and significantly more if it's Kim or Kylie posting. Like the rest of her family, Kris collects those paychecks too, but her business dealings are more diverse than a lot of people realize, and they haven't always been successful. Of course, we all know she's the momager of the family and takes a cool 10% of their astronomical earnings. Her kids even joke that her favorite is whichever one of them is bringing in the most cash.
Is it because she makes you a lot of money?
What is wrong with you?
I was just asking.
But that doesn't mean Kris is just kicking back and letting her kids do all the work. In addition to managing their careers, she owns her own production company called Jenner Communications. After spending years both behind and in front of the camera, Kris decided to go for her dream of having her very own talk show. If you've never heard of the show Kris, that's probably because it didn't even make it past the 6-week-long trial period. Her son-in-law Kanye West even made an appearance, the first time he had experienced a television interview in 3 years. Despite all this, Kris's show was over nearly as quickly as it had begun. Although her time as a talk show host was short-lived, Kris is a woman of many talents. She wrote an autobiography entitled Kris Jenner and All Things Kardashian, as well as a cookbook called In the Kitchen with Kris, a collection of Kardashian-Jenner family favorites. And yes, collection is spelled with a K. Oh, and did we mention that Kris co-founded a church? It's called the California Community Church in Beverly Hills, and you'd better believe it has a $1,000 a month membership fee. And on top of that, each member pays the same tithe as her kids, 10%. Over the years, Kris has worked on planes, put together an infomercial, and created one of the most enduring reality shows of all time. Kris is always working hard, even if a lot of it is behind the scenes. Even though they all have their own ventures, her kids say they've only started learning about business from the best expert they know, their mom. What do you think about the story of Kris Jenner? Do you think she just got lucky, or is she more talented than people give her credit for? Tell us what you think in the comment section below, and make sure to click on the subscribe button for more new videos from us here at The Taco. We'll see you next time!